is KIRO 7 Breaking News.
Breaking news, Washington state swamped with historic flooding, levees failing, crumbling highways, roads shut down. Right now we are cutting into your programming with a special report to bring you Governor Bob Ferguson, who is about to speak right now in Seattle about the state's emergency response and recovery efforts. Let's listen in.
Washington State Department of Transportation Secretary, then Aaron McCann, American Red Cross Coordinating Officer, then Pierce County Executive Ryan Mello, and then they will take your questions. With that, Governor Bob Ferguson.
Actually, Kermai, you're first. We're taking things out of order.
Force of habit.
Out of order, yeah.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the King County Chinook building. I want to thank Governor Ferguson and all of our elected partners and first responders for being here this morning. Welcome to King County. I can only be here for a few minutes this morning because early this morning, my wife and I welcomed our second baby girl. Yeah, thank you so much. So I will be rushing back to the hospital here very soon, but I want you to know that our teams at King County are keeping me informed on a consistent basis, and Deputy Executive Curran Gill, who is somewhere around here back there, will be stepping in for me as needed over the coming days. Before our announcement, I want to say that I am so proud of the collaboration that has been happening across all levels of government with our cities, our counties, our state. We have received excellent communication from Governor Ferguson and his team during this disaster. Even last night, we were able to pull together a meeting with all of our South King County mayors, along with our governor and our 2 U.S. Senator offices. This is the type of collaboration that I want our region to feel hope from. I know we're experiencing all kinds of challenges right now with the levee breaches, one at the Desimone levee just this morning with the White River in Pacific. All of those situations are being handled as we speak, and those levees are being repaired. But today, I want to share that collaboration is going to go to the next level. With the coordination of the council and our chief budget officer, we are announcing today that King County will make an initial investment of $1.5 million in shelter assistance and debris removal. And I want to be clear that this announcement is nowhere near the scale of what's needed to address the damage and the lost profits that our communities are experiencing. We are just trying to pull together short-term resources while we work toward federal disaster relief, and the governor will be announcing some state resources today as well. We spoke with members of the King County Council this morning, including Budget Chair Rod Dembowski and Council Chair Sarah Perry, and they are also supportive of this measure. To repeat, I want to reiterate that we are going to be putting in $1.5 million as a start in disaster relief resources, but full recovery will take intense collaboration and resource sharing between federal government, state, and local governments working closely with philanthropy and nonprofit communities. For now, we're going to work with our emergency management teams to ensure that funding is going to the places that need it most immediately. Over the last few days, there have been hundreds of county residents displaced from the floods who have been in shelters in South King County or are staying with family and friends. We also heard that there's a need to support debris removal throughout some of the county's further eastern cities of Carnation, Duval, and Skykomish, and in South King County as well. We're going to identify needs to get resources out as soon as possible to support work in those areas. I just want to say before I close that I am so thankful for the first responders and King County employees who have been working around the clock. We are seeing our emergency management professionals working 24/7. We're seeing our sheriff's office saving people from the roofs of cars and from drowning. We're seeing wastewater employees trapped in buildings continuing to do the work of providing clean water and resources to our communities. It has been truly, truly inspiring to see our King County professionals, along with first responders from all levels of government, showing up for our communities. And so I want you all to know before I hand it off to Governor Ferguson that we are here. We're working round the clock to support our communities. This is a very challenging time, but we will get through it. I'm going to hand it over now to Governor Ferguson. Thank you so much for your leadership and calling us all together today. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And give our best to Joyce, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we appreciate the county executive hosting us, number one, but also, obviously with a a significant day in his life, and Joyce, we wish them all the best and appreciate him taking a few minutes to join us. I also want to thank all those who have joined us today on very short notice. Things are happening fast, and we appreciate the collaboration, the hard work of everybody who's here. We got a range of elected officials and community members who are here, and you'll be hearing from some of them in a few moments. I also do want to take a moment to thank the media who's here. I've been tracking, to the extent I have time, the reports are going out there, and getting that information out to the people of the state I have no doubt it's saving lives. Like, there's a zero doubt in my mind. And also just a sense of, there's nothing like a visual to get a sense of the scale. I think it's easy to get complacent for folks, like, hey, it's another storm. But I think when you see some of the visuals that are being reported out there, I'm confident that has more than the words I can say or any of us can say. To see those images, I think, are important, and I just deeply appreciate that you're all doing that. And I know this is, I think, our 5th press conference since this started, and I just really appreciate all of you communicating out in the ways that you are. It's been a difficult week, and that difficult week has been made more difficult by a loss of life that was reported early this morning in Snohomish County. On behalf of the people of the state of Washington, we extend our condolences to that man's family and loved ones for what's obviously a very challenging time. That is, we believe, the first fatality as a result of the storm. We've had many conversations about in the last 5 days how thankful we are that there had not been a fatality, and that really feeling like a minor miracle, to be perfectly honest, just given the scale of the challenge. But our hearts go out to that individual and their family and loved ones. I also want to express my deep appreciation to our first responders, the National Guard, our emergency management teams, numerous state employees, and all those who are lending a hand to help Washingtonians through this emergency. Long hours, as you might imagine, are the norm for those individuals. We deeply appreciate their hard work and dedication. I've met a number of folks who are not only doing that work, but then going to their homes at the end of a long day to try and stabilize their home situation and deal with the family situation, because the floods are impacting them quite directly. And that is quite inspiring to see that level of dedication. Even they have their own risks that are personal, that they're out there doing their work to help other Washingtonians. As we've been saying every day since this started, the situation is extremely unpredictable. And that's something I want to emphasize again to all Washingtonians. We've seen that unpredictability just in the last 24 hours as 2 examples: the levee breach in Tukwila and also the situation in Pacific Washington this evening, where there was an emergency evacuation. I've seen video of people literally on the streets in the middle of the night coming out of their homes. We have, this is not, and it's not a 1 or 2 day event, right? We're in for the long haul, and all that water is putting a lot of stress on our infrastructure, and we're seeing that in real time. And that is something I just want to emphasize to Washingtonians, to be alert. If you get an evacuation order, for God's sakes, follow it. I was down in Pacific County with Executive Mello Sunday, I think it was, and met with water rescue personnel, and one of those individuals said, this is someone who's done a lot of water rescue in his professional life. He mentioned in the last couple of days being in a situation in the water that he felt was a life-threatening situation for him. Nobody wants to put our first responders in that level of danger. If you get an evacuation order, leave. That's for your own safety. It is also for the safety of first responders, because guess what? If you're in trouble and you call, they will go get you out. But that puts themselves at risk. And so we're asking individuals for this very volatile situation to make sure that they're listening to those orders. I also just want to add the coordination at all levels of government, with tribes, with organizations that you'll hear from, communities across our state, has truly been tremendous. That is, I ask at every stop I go to, and I've been to a number, is there anything else you need? Is there any more coordination you need? The response has always been no, we've got the resources we need. People are responding quickly. That's from Grays Harbor to Yakima, Stehekin, all around. That has been the response I'm hearing from folks. And that coordination, we need it. And it has served us well. It's helped. The other thing I think has helped is significant investments in infrastructure in recent years. In Ording, for example, investments in a levee system there compared to floods several years ago, night and day in terms of the impacts there. Mount Vernon, Washington, the seawall there literally saved the downtown. King County, the King County Flood Control District has invested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to shore up our flood system here and prepare for it. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with individuals saying, it's bad, it's really bad, but the magnitude would have been far, far worse had we not made those investments. And these are investments just in the last recent years, have literally, they're convinced, saved lives, saved businesses, saved entire downtowns. So I think all those things have served us well, and I'm grateful for leaders over recent years who have made those investments and the individuals in the state of Washington willing to invest in that. While it will be some time before we know the full scope of the emotional, physical, and financial impact, this natural disaster is undoubtedly one of the most devastating in our state's history. I do want to take a moment to speak directly to Washingtonians who are directly impacted by this emergency. We see you. We know the situation you're in. We're doing everything we can and moving heaven and earth to get resources to you as quickly as humanly possible. All Washingtonians, even those not directly impacted by this disaster, need to brace themselves. We are in for the long haul with this natural disaster. We'll provide more information, but our infrastructure has been compromised. We'll have to dig ourselves out of this situation. This is not a days-long thing or a weeks-long thing. This will be going on for months. This is a very significant event in the history of our state, and that's an understatement. And that's why we're working as hard as we can around the clock to treat it exactly that way. To give you a sense, we've already had over 1,200 rescues and evacuations across more than 10 counties in Washington state. Once again, Washingtonians need to stay alert to the situation and obey road closure signs and evacuation orders. We expect additional widespread flooding across the state today and tomorrow. The Skagit and Snoqualmie rivers, as just two examples, are both expected to surpass major flood stage, cresting today and tomorrow. Importantly, we're also expecting major high winds across the region in the next 24 to 36 hours. The report I had yesterday was up to 60 miles an hour. You can imagine in a state that's been inundated with the amount of moisture that we've experienced, those type of high winds can be potentially very dangerous and create all sorts of challenges for us in the work that we're doing, and making the situation even more challenging for first responders and for all of us to respond to this situation. Roads and highways. State Department of Transportation, you'll be hearing from Julie, has reopened more than 60 roads since the storm started. I'm deeply appreciative of the hardworking Washington employees who are out there around the clock reopening those roads. It seems like for every two they reopen, another one, something happens, right? So, but they're out there relentlessly trying to keep those open for Washingtonians. We deeply appreciate the hard work of those state employees. As of this morning, there are closures, I believe, on 13 state highways. That number, of course, changes almost hourly, daily for sure. But as of now, that's the number. There are currently additionally 7 road restrictions. Several state highways have been severely damaged. Julia will provide more information, but I just want to highlight a lengthy stretch of Highway 2, as you probably know, is severely damaged. It is very difficult for us to project how long anything will take to repair. We're just getting our arms around the scope of the challenge up there. But as an example of what Washingtonians need to expect, we anticipate that Highway 2 will be closed for months. It's premature to estimate exactly how long that will be, but that is obviously a major highway. We understand the implications to business and individuals and human lives on not having that highway available for an extended period of time. We're going to do everything we possibly can to repair it as quickly as possible, but literally underwater in stages. There's major issues on that roadway, on that highway, as just one example. We understand that many Washingtonians' lives have been deeply impacted personally by this emergency. We're also moving quickly to try and get relief to those individuals. I've had numerous conversations with my team, with local elected officials across our state, see what can we do to pool immediate assistance to folks who may need assistance with a hotel stay, groceries, baby diapers, that type of thing. This morning I signed an amendment to my emergency declaration. The amended proclamation adds more information about county-specific impacts in 14 counties, and it activates several state cash and benefits assistance programs to provide emergency support. I'm appreciative of the legislators who are here and others who have worked in recent years to create this system in place so we can move those dollars out on a very short-term basis while we move forward on trying to get a declaration of emergency relief from the federal government. We're working to activate as many state resources as we can. We currently have identified $3.5 million that I, as governor, can move on my own without legislative action. I know the legislature supports that decision anyway, but of course there are limits on what I can do as governor. Of course, without legislative action, we've identified that $3.5 million. We'll provide information to the public as soon as we're able to stand that process up where folks can access. I'm also working with leadership in the House and the Senate to move forward on essentially first week legislation of the legislative session to get additional resources to folks right away and increase that dollar amount. More to come on that. I want to make sure I finish the conversations I need to have before making a public announcement, but obviously we're working hard to make sure we increase the amount of short-term funding available to folks who are really dealing with the crisis situation right now. Our Emergency Management Division is also setting up disaster case management. That will provide assistance to counties and tribes to hire disaster case managers. These case managers will provide long-term assistance to Washingtonians and help them navigate the resources available to them. We expect to bring that online soon. In addition to these individual assistance funds, there are other resources and assistance through many different agencies. This is a very non-exclusive list, but just give a sense of scale of the type of work that's being done. The Washington Department of Agriculture expedited USDA foods to Skagit County and will deliver more than 70,000 pounds of food tomorrow to local food pantries and meal programs. They're also helping farmers find services, including helping identify locations to shelter animals. The Healthcare Authority is instructing Apple Health pharmacies to replace lost or inaccessible medications or supplies due to flooding. The Department of Social and Health Services is helping connect people who are deaf, blind, or hard of hearing to resources, including its hearing equipment replacement program. The Office of the Insurance Commissioner has teams of experts ready to deploy when the time is right to help homeowners and businesses. That is just a sampling of a few examples, but as you can imagine, across many agencies and governments and tribes, a massive amount of work is being done right now to make sure we're getting resources out to individuals, and we all understand that we need to move in a manner consistent with the scope of the challenge that Washingtonians are facing. We're also moving forward to seek federal funding for needs as well. The federal emergency declaration granted by President Trump last week brought in federal resources to deal with the emergency right in front of us, saving lives, clearing debris on roadways, for example. General Welsh will talk more about some of that work as well. It did not offer monetary assistance or assistance to individuals. That's not the way that works. So what we're working on is a major disaster declaration. That's what unlocks significant financial resources for individuals and for local governments and the state for the impacts that will no doubt be profound from a financial standpoint. In order to get that declaration, we need to meet several requirements. We must show the scale of the disaster is beyond our ability as a state to fully respond, confirm we have taken appropriate action as a state under our emergency plans, provide an estimate on the amount and severity of damage to the public and private sector. This can be a time-consuming process. We've already started the conversation with local governments. We've had many conversations to make sure we're coordinating as quickly as possible to get that information and make a compelling case to the federal government of the scope and size of the damage that's been done to our state. We need to describe the resources utilized to alleviate the disaster and provide preliminary estimates on the type of assistance needed. I am confident we will make a very compelling case for disaster relief. Maybe I'll just briefly mention there are 3 types of FEMA disaster assistance that we'll be seeking. Public assistance can be provided to state, tribes, and local governments and certain nonprofits for emergency work to repair or replace facilities damaged by the disaster. That would include things like roads and bridges that we'll desperately need assistance with. Also, hazard mitigation assistance can be provided for projects like flood mitigation. And third, and importantly, individual assistance can help with a variety of costs for individuals who are facing significant costs after a disaster, including temporary housing, home repair, counseling, and legal services. We're also working with the Small Business Administration to get a disaster declaration from them, which will allow homeowners, renters, and business owners to access low-interest disaster loans. And before I turn to the general to say a few words, to put this in some context for Washingtonians, this is a major event in our state's history. It is truly historic. The river levels we have seen are historic, and we've been tracking those river levels for more than a century. Every day I get multiple briefings, and just as one example with Julie on roads, like clearly just highway those highways are under a lot of stress right now, and it'll take us time to even determine how long it will take to reopen some and exactly what that damage is. So, I deeply appreciate Washingtonians pulling together during this really challenging time. Neighbors are helping neighbors. Communities are helping communities. I can't tell you how many elected officials have said, hey, you know what, our community's not impacted, but we want help. What can we do? We've got resources. That's the approach. That does not surprise me in our state. We're all pulling together to address an extremely challenging situation. And for those Washingtonians, again, who are directly impacted, I just want you to know, speaking to you directly, we're all doing, and many thousands of other Washingtonians are doing everything we possibly can to get you help right away. Thank you so much all for being here. I'm going to turn now to the general for additional information. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you all for being here today. And certainly thanks to our new King County executive and new dad as of this morning, Executive Sahai. King County has been a tremendous partner in this, and we truly appreciate the collaboration, and really so has the media. Appreciate everybody being here, appreciate the support. You're sharing critical life-saving information. You're sharing it every day, and in some cases, every hour. We've been relying on you to get the word out about evacuation notices, weather forecasts, and when we move into this recovery phase, we'll be turning to you to help share some of the information to get people help with some other resources out there. We are now on day 8 of this disaster, and for me and many others here, I think it's feeling a lot like Groundhog Day. Every morning we wake up, we pull out our phones out, and we look to see for some improvement out there, but Mother Nature seems to keep throwing us another curveball. I spent the last week out in our communities surveying the damage. I've seen homes filled with several feet of water. For those impacted, my heart goes out to you, and I pledge that we will do whatever we can to help you recover. We all have families that are heading into the holiday season this year without a place to stay, and this is not going to be an easy road ahead. The Washington National Guard is doing what we can to assist those who need it and prevent further damage. You see it on the commercials. When events like this thing happen, our men and women leave their civilian jobs, they get into their cars, they leave their families, and they offer their communities a helping hand. And I wear a patch on my uniform, and it says mission, people, and community. And this is the emphasis on the community part. Our women and men live and breathe this, and the last 8 days have demonstrated this community commitment. We still have approximately 250 soldiers and airmen helping with this response. They filled over 15,000 sandbags. They're preventing people from driving down dangerous roads, and they're going door to door to help with evacuations. We have aviation crews that have helped with search and rescue and to gain situational awareness. Our helicopters and pilots remain on standby and will likely get a bird's eye view in the next coming days of damaged roads across the state. Yesterday, we sent a team immediately to Tukwila to help with the levee breach. Our team was asked to walk the levees and dikes and help identify any weaknesses. And early just this morning, we moved people and 8 vehicles closer to the town of Pacific to help emergency crews responding to the levee breach there. We will keep these men and women prepared to go at a moment's notice, and if necessary, quickly add to our numbers. We have more folks that can roll out the door if they're necessary. With that, I want to remind you that the National Guard does not self-deploy, and that's for good reason. We go where we're asked, either by the governor or local jurisdictions. So if you wonder why the National Guard is in one place or another, it's because someone has asked us to be there. So let me stress this. We are helping here for this flood response, and we're helping with our local partners. Any suggestion to the contrary just isn't true. I want to give a shout out to our federal partners who are here that have been a tremendous help. The emergency declaration approved by the President last week unlocked a lot of direct resources, people and equipment, and we're putting them to work now. That was incredibly evident this morning when we learned about the situation at Pacific about 2 o'clock this morning. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers immediately got to work finding sand and getting those large 5,000-pound HESCO sandbags in place. The situation in Pacific, while bad, certainly could have been a lot worse, and I would say we are certainly not out of the woods yet. I appreciate our partners at the Corps of Engineers for their quick action this morning and certainly throughout the duration of this week. Additionally, you have federal urban search and rescue teams in the Pacific area this morning helping with evacuations and any swift water rescues, and I think there may have been some already. Again, another federal resource that we turn to immediately. The federal government has provided several of these search and rescue teams, and again, we have one positioned up in Marysville, 2 in Kent, and one down at JBLM. The Coast Guard has been a tremendous help with rotor wing aircraft supporting search and rescue operations throughout the Northwest. Meanwhile, I'll be heading up to Bothell tomorrow to visit our partners from FEMA at their Regional Response Coordination Center. These folks have been on every coordination call with us and have sent folks to Camp Murray and our State Emergency Operations Center. They've been true partners, and we certainly appreciate that. Again, truly a team effort. Appreciate the help from every one of our federal partners, even that I didn't mention. As the governor mentioned, we're currently working to assess the damage. It's going to take time. It's one step forward in some cases and 2 steps back with the constant storms. But we'll remain in contact with our federal partners as we move through the process and, as the governor said, request a major disaster declaration just as soon as we can. It's going to take some time. There have been a lot of questions about damages. As we go and gather that information, we won't have firm numbers really until the storm waters recede and we can safely get in there. And let me stress, this is an evolving situation, as the governor said repeatedly. The next couple days and even in the couple weeks, it's going to be challenging, and especially tonight over the next 24 to 48 hours with the heavy winds on top of saturated ground. You've got potential power outages, roads out, all in the middle of a flood. So really a complex series of issues. Please continue to follow the guidance from our local emergency managers and first responders and be confident that we are willing to deploy resources quickly to help our local communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Julie Meredith from the Washington State Department of Transportation. Our crews have been working around the clock since this storm began. We've opened more than 60 roads when the flooding began on December 9th. And I want to thank all the crews we have out there doing the work to open the roads and keep people moving. Much gratitude for the work they do. As of this morning, and this can change, we've had more than a dozen roads closed in 9 of the counties across the state. It's important to remember that these roads could close again with the more rain and the continuing landslide risk that we have coming forward. We're not out of the woods yet. The wind and the rain can make this more challenging over the next several days. The best source of information is WashDOT's real-time map on our website that will provide you minute-by-minute updates on the road conditions and the closures. As you heard from the governor, some of our main focuses have been on US 2, which is closed for about 49 miles between the towns of Skykomish and Leavenworth. Several areas on that highway are damaged and washed out, so the roads are not there any longer. We will need to rebuild those sections of highway. Near milepost 54, there's a bridge that's covered over several feet of debris with active landslides going on in the place, nearby. Our geotech crews are out there reassessing on a daily basis what those slides are doing and assessing whether we can get in and do further work. In Tumwater Canyon, you may have seen the photos of the washout of the road in that section of highway. It is still an active slide area with erosion continuing. The weather and the river are really the main factors affecting our ability to address these areas. And as you heard, we have no estimated time to open that, and it could take months. US 12 is also closed near the town of Natchez. About 200 feet of road washed away in that section. While there is a local detour there for people to get around, we are still going forward with emergency repairs of that corridor, and our crews are working 7 days a week to address this washout. We hope to have that section of highway open in the next few weeks. You also may have heard about SR 410 between Enumclaw and Greenwater. That section has been washed out by the river. It's in active erosion, and we are piloting people through that on a daily basis. I also want to thank the general here who's offering us aerial views of these routes, in particular US 2. So if weather allows, we will be able to assess it over the next few days. So I look forward to that. I also want to stress safety at this time. Safety for the public, for our crews, and all the hardworking first responders. I want to emphasize, please never drive through standing water or debris slides. If you can't see the roadway, don't go forward. It could be far deeper than you can realize. And we need everyone to observe our roadway closures. These signs are there for everyone's safety. If they're in place, it's not safe to proceed. Thank you.
Good morning, you all. Erin McCann here with the American Red Cross Coordinating Officer for our event that we are supporting here in the state of Washington. Thank you, General. Thank you, Governor, and King County for having us here. We appreciate having a seat at the table and being able to share our message today. I wanted to share a little bit about what we at Red Cross have going on at the moment. Currently, we have a variety of responders that are assigned. Today, there are 263 responders assigned to the operation, with 248 that are checked in physically here in Washington. We have 15 en route to continue to support, and 15 of those are folks that are supporting virtually. At this time, we have served 11,900 meals and snacks, which have been distributed across the area of the operation in the state of Washington. Of these, 6,300 are shelf-stable meals that were sent to get food in areas that may be closed due to the incoming weather, which may cause the passes to be inaccessible through the mountains. We have started our distribution of emergency supplies program, and at this time we have distributed 1,270 cleanup kits and other emergency supplies, which have been distributed across the state of Washington. At this time, I know of 100 of those kits have been distributed here in King County. Our open shelters, we've had open shelters since the beginning of this event, and we've had over 970 overnight stays, which have been provided in these emergency shelters since the start. There are 9 open shelters, of which at this time, 8 of those are Red Cross managed and 1 is partner managed, with a total overnight count of 167. With that, specifically in King County, we have a few shelters that I would like to share about in their overnight population. Starting with in Auburn, at the Auburn Community and Event Center, last night we had an overnight population of 52 folks that were in that shelter, as well as that's our primary shelter at this time. We are standing by for any more support requests at this time and are happy to open up additional shelters if needed. I wanted to share a little bit, they've talked a little bit about the spans of this disaster, and this disaster area spans a total of 123,000 miles in the state of Washington, and that coordination takes a lot of effort and is a large area to manage. We really appreciate our partners that are at the table and everybody standing behind here to be at the table and to be able to present today, and we greatly appreciate the support. Thank you very much for having us here.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan Mello, the Pierce County Executive. I'm the final planned speaker before Governor Ferguson leads us in taking any of your questions. Governor, I want to thank you for being so engaged statewide and at the local level. I think I've talked to you more than I've talked to my partner in the past 4 days.
Sorry about that.
No, you might like it. But Governor, thank you for leaning in. Thank you for all the coordination from the team. It's so appreciated. We feel very supported in local government with our first responders and emergency management providers. As the governor mentioned, he came down to Pierce County to see firsthand some of the crisis in Pierce County. It's certainly different all across the region and the state. In Pierce County, as an example, the governor and I got to see firsthand. In particular, we have 3 mobile home parks that we're most concerned about. 3 mobile home parks, about 150 individuals housed in these RV parks who have really seriously compromised housing conditions as a result of the flooding. So like Executive Zahalai, we too are making local resources available until we can unlock state and federal resources. We're helping these folks who are most vulnerable. In my community in Pierce County, it's these 150 residents who live in these RV mobiles that we're most concerned about. And so we're providing them shelter and food with local resources until we can unlock much needed federal resources. First responders in Pierce County, like a lot of communities, are literally going door to door to be able to move people out of harm's way, and human services providers are helping to move people to shelter and other services. And we are so very grateful to our first responders who are working day and night and our emergency managers. The last thing I want to mention before I turn it back over to the governor is another example of significant regional coordination and how local government partners from throughout the region are banding together to support each other. Pierce County is the operator and administrator of what's called Washington State Task Force 1. Washington State Task Force 1 is a FEMA urban search and rescue unit that is, again, operated and administered by Pierce County. My team worked overnight along with the governor's team and the military department to get the necessary agreements together to deploy Washington Task Force 1 to our communities in Skagit County earlier today. So it's my understanding that they left shortly before we convened this press conference. These are professionals in urban search and rescue, technical assistance, medical assistance, and logistics, and they'll be there as long as needed to protect life and property. Governor, thank you again.
So thanks everybody again who's joined us today, and we're happy. We have lots of folks who can help answer detailed questions as well if you have, whether it's the weather or anything else, and we're happy to take any questions. Yeah.
Governor, you just talked about the infrastructure
Yeah.
weakened as a result of this, and obviously there's a complicated series of levies and dikes
Yes.
county by county.
Yes.
The question is, who's responsible on a county by county basis for inspecting them in advance to prevent them from a failure?
Yeah, so it'll be, I'll let others maybe speak to that. So the question goes to, for those who are watching, I mean, I've heard levee system, a lot of stress in that system, kind of who's responsible for checking that? And you mean, Sir Chris, in real time right now, but also long term when the floodwaters?
Long term
Yep.
or in advance of a weather system, like a lot of people do
Oh,
this time.
well, so we have folks out there in real time checking those out. I'll let experts speak to it, but I just want to say at a high level when it comes to that system is, and I think I mentioned this earlier, you know, I'm deeply thankful that we made as a region, as a state, investments in that infrastructure. I was on the King County Council when that flood control district was created, for example. You know, I'm thankful that investments were made, and this is all across the state. That said, one thing I'm hearing over and over from the experts, who will probably speak in a moment, is there's tremendous stress on that infrastructure. As well as it's held up, all things considered, that stress is there. There's active monitoring going on. One thing I've also had communication with is when the floodwaters eventually recede, we don't know what we're going to find in terms of damage to the infrastructure that's going to need additional reinvestment to make sure it's secure for the next go-round and the next major event. But I'll turn to others who maybe will speak more precisely, kind of who precisely is there. Robert? And maybe you don't mind introducing yourself, that'd be great. Yeah.
Robert Azell, Director of Emergency Management for the state. And really the management of the levees and dikes is a shared responsibility. Some are federally managed by the Army Corps. Some are managed by local levee and diking districts. And so ultimately it's a network of systems with multiple jurisdictions managing them.
Do you know what the inspection records were on some of these levees or when they were last inspected by these people who are responsible?
I would have to get back to you on that one, and we can research it and get you a detailed answer to that question.
And just a quick follow-up, and it could be for the group, there was some reporting overnight about 2 dams that may have cracks in them. What's the status of those dams? What have you seen with other dams in Washington State?
We've had a couple of dams that we've been watching, one out in Grays Harbor County, and then we are always keeping track of the ones in East Pierce and King County. And so we've seen some areas of concerns. The experts, the Army Corps, and others are watching those to make sure that they're not presenting a danger to the public.
Can you elaborate on what those concerns are?
Again, it's fill levels and a degree of security and whether the dams are able to withstand the strain. And again, I would have to get back to you on specific things that they're looking at on a dam-by-dam basis.
Is there anything for anybody to be concerned about with those dams right now?
Right now, we have not had anything that concerned to us that presents a danger to the public.
And Robert, I'll just add, but you know, to that point, I'm going to come back to this again. Folks need to be vigilant. Right? This is an extremely unpredictable situation. Our infrastructure has held up remarkably well, but when you're talking about the volume of water that has been impacting our region and our state for a week now, and that's going to ramp up again here in the next 48 hours, folks need to be vigilant. And so a lot of work is being done to monitor levees, to make sure we're paying attention to the dams. But that's why I'm repeating, we are still in the middle of this. You know, we're not at the end. That's not where we're at. This is a very active situation, a very volatile situation. That's why I want people to be very vigilant. And we, of course, work hard to make sure we get information out as quickly as we can. Yes?
Governor, so obviously a big part of this is just waiting for the weather to let up and relieve some of this pressure. But can you talk about some of the factors that are in our control as far as trying to slow down some of the flow, relieve some of the pressure? Like what kind of tweaks are being made to mitigate this?
Yeah, so we've had conversations with our federal partners at every level for exactly that issue to make sure that, hey, as we make adjustments on water levels, what are the impacts going down in terms of flooding? So those are conversations that are happening in real time every single day. I've been on some calls where those conversations have come up. Just so folks know, we have 2 daily calls every single day. We have one with state and federal officials, right? The general, for example, and his team is on those calls. I'm on those calls. We have one that's more focused on local elected officials with the same folks there as well. So we have multiple daily calls with folks from all across the state where they can report in about what they're seeing, and we can have those conversations.
And maybe the Director of Emergency Management can clarify, but can you get into some specifics of kind of processes that have been taken to relieve some of this pressure?
I'm not sure. Are you able to speak to that, Robert?
I can speak to it in general terms. Yeah, and the dam owners and operators are constantly managing the water levels in the dams, and if they do need to release water to reduce pressure on the dams, there's a whole coordination process that takes place between the owners and operators and then the communities downstream to let them know what's happening. But again, those dams are being very dynamically managed to make sure that they are not exceeding the capacity of the safe water levels within the dams.
Can you give us any examples of where that's happened?
It's happened upstream of the Nisqually. I think it's been happening on the Cowlitz and any number of other rivers.
Yes.
I realize this is probably a preliminary question, but do you have any estimate or guidance on the economic impact for the state of Washington, both like direct impacts and economic consequence later on?
So the question is economic impacts to the state. No. Look, a lot of our state's underwater as we speak. You know, Highway 2, we don't even have a full, by any stretch of the imagination, do we have anywhere near, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Julie, a full assessment of the damage of that one critical highway. So again, I want to underscore, like, this is a major event. A lot of our state's underwater. We can't access certain parts of the state. So anything I say about that would be totally inappropriate and premature. What I will say is the impacts to our state from a financial standpoint, right, from an infrastructure standpoint, that will be profound. There's no way to sugarcoat that. That will be profound. I don't know what that dollar amount's going to be. We're not going to know that, I suspect, for quite a while. And also, we're appropriately focused on what's right in front of us, right? Everybody's pretty maxed out, and we're focused on what's right in front of us and preparing for that emergency relief that we need from the federal government. As soon as we have any information around that, of course, we're happy to share that, but it just would be premature at this time.
And you were asked a little bit about this on Friday, but without having that complete information, how do you take that into account in your budget proposal and putting that together by the statutory deadline?
Yeah, so the statutory deadline for my budget proposal is the 23rd, which I think is Tuesday if I've got my days and dates squared away. You know, we had, planned to already be rolling out parts of the budget by now. Obviously, with the events of this disaster, all that's been changed. So honestly, that's just not been my priority right now, the overall budget. But we are, Senator Peterson, for example, and other legislative leaders, Speaker Jenkins and others, we are looking at what I can do in the proposed budget. Obviously, we have time to the legislative session to work on that, to address in that budget the situation we're facing. So not to get out ahead of my team, but you'll be hearing from me soon about housing investments in my proposed budgets. We are doing things in that budget to utilize some of those dollars to help folks who are dealing with this emergency, who have been displaced from their homes, to try and help as many as we can around housing issues and have resources targeted for them. For example, you will undoubtedly see in my proposed budget a significant investment in infrastructure. That was always the plan. I've talked about that for a long, long time, as long as I've been governor, the need for more work on our roads and our bridges. I think it's fair to say that this disaster has only underscored how important those investments are. So yes, you will see things in the budget that obviously connect to the situation that we're seeing right now. But I also want to add, that's an ongoing conversation I'm having with legislators about needs that they see in their areas overall on how we're going to adjust this budget, notwithstanding a challenging budget situation we have, to make sure we're doing all we can to help out folks who are really struggling. Yeah.
Sorry,
understanding, the barrier that failed in Pacific had been a HESCO barrier in place for around 10 or 15 years. Why weren't weak spots like that identified before this, and what are you all doing during this emergency to identify those points?
Can someone speak to the specific situation at Pacific County?
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you. If you don't mind introducing
Not
yourself,
at all.
that'd be great. Yeah.
John Taylor, Director of the Department of Natural Resources and Parks. So we had identified that segment as an area that was weak, and that's why we had crews there deployed, kind of watching it very carefully. When it began to break, we had staff there who not only were alerting people immediately nearby, but also notified the Emergency Operations Center. We got Guardian 1 in the air to notify people over a loudhailer, and then we started deploying material to beef it up. We had deployed before this event to reinforce a lot of levees in the county that we knew were weak. And that's a segment that has a large capital project slated. It was supposed to start this summer. But, we can't do everything everywhere all at once.
So to clarify his question, you knew this was
Yeah,
a weak spot?
yeah. And that's
Before the flood, you knew
absolutely. And we had been out there reinforcing it before this, but we did, with everything we can do, this is an extraordinary event. As the governor said, this is not an extraordinary event in terms of the height of water we're seeing. I mean, it's very, very high, but the duration of it is extraordinary in King County. And so that's why you're seeing levees that typically perform pretty well in floods begin to fail, because the levees are getting saturated and there's a lot of pressure on them and they're getting weak and failing. We were watching the levee in Tukwila that failed very closely. We had staff there when that happened. We were able to deploy quickly. And we have a number of areas where we've got staff very focused on watching them. Want to thank the National Guard. The National Guard has been helping us in doing that. We're trying to stay ahead of this as much as we can, but this is a really, really unusual event.
How many weak spots?
More than a dozen, I would suspect, across the entire system, some more severe than others.
Given that the Desmond project, I believe, has a finishing date of 2031, I know we're in the emergency right now, but what ability is there to get ahead and speed up some of the work on levees, whether it's in Pacific or in Tukwila, to speed that work up?
I think the limitation on that is money. And, we have a very robust capital program for the King County Flood Control District, and we will be moving aggressively over this summer to advance projects as fast as we can. But, they're not inexpensive projects.
And given some of the dozen weak spots or that kind of thing, should there be level 1 get set evacuation orders so people have their things ready to go in case a middle of the night situation happens again?
We're evaluating that. I mean, if we see things that give us very, very big concern, we have done that. But most of these have been manageable. I mean, we're managing a bunch of these right now without people even being aware that we're managing them.
Thanks. Jim.
Governor, you and I think others mentioned FEMA, that the emergency declaration, the initial federal declaration, has opened up some FEMA help. So far from what you've seen from FEMA, are they participating on the ground in the way that you would expect?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Are they participating with the state right now in the preliminary damage assessment? And then does that give you any tea leaves to read about how they might receive the ultimate request you mentioned for individual and public assistance?
I guess I'm not sure, Jim, if I can sort of speak to the tea leaves. I guess what I'm confident I can say is that the situation that the state of Washington is facing and is confronting and is dealing with, in my mind, will undoubtedly qualify, right, for that disaster relief. We're going to make a compelling case. And one thing I've emphasized in numerous conversations with my friends on the other side of the aisle is asking for their help in communicating when the time is right, when we get this thing together, to communicate that to the federal government, because this will be a compelling case. And just to the earlier questions as well is, there's a reason why for multiple days, I've been and others have referred to this as a historic event in terms of the amount of floodwaters receiving, the river levels, and the duration of it. So this is taxing our infrastructure, as good infrastructure as we have with significant investments across our state and regions over a period of years. This is, a different level of stress that we've had in the system. And so that is why it's being monitored so closely and why we're so thankful that we've been able to limit the loss of life. Notwithstanding the loss of life earlier today.
Just follow up. So is what you've seen from FEMA so far what you would expect?
Absolutely, 100%.
Are they participating in the preliminary damage?
Oh, on the sorry if I didn't address that. Can we speak to that? I think I know the answer, but I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, the preliminary damage assessment is done in partnership with FEMA. We've already launched that with them, and they're bringing a lot of their tools to bear. So they've been great partners in this whole thing.
And Jim, just add that I've had multiple conversations with FEMA representatives throughout this process. No, from my perspective, their response has been extremely helpful, and we're going to need that continued partnership and support going forward as well. Yes.
$3.5 million that you mentioned that you'd identified. Yeah. What's the source of that, and is there a timeline for getting that money out the door?
Brianna's got those. We'll get those to you. I don't want to get into too much level of detail, but there are, I think, 2 different sources of specific items in the budget. Brianna's got that. It may be in the media advisory. We can turn that. She can hand you a piece of paper, I think, shortly, that's got the exact name of those programs. But those are exactly right. Emergency funds I can turn to right away without having to go through a legislative process.
And is there a timeline for using that money?
In terms like when it has to be out the door, or
when are you? Looking to use it.
Oh, when it will go out the door.
Yeah.
We don't have a specific day. What I can say is the team understands we need to get those dollars out as quickly as possible. There are some things that take time. We got to work with counties on this. There's a process for this, as you might imagine, but I can assure you a lot of folks are working very hard to make sure we're breaking down any bureaucracy to make those dollars available. So as soon as we have a detailed date by which that's available, we'll obviously make that available to the public. But a lot of folks are working on that to make sure we do that in a way that gets it out there as quickly as possible.
And what exactly is the plan for how that money would be spent?
It's for folks for very short-term assistance they may need. We want to be clear, this is not going to replace somebody's home. That is not what this is about. What we're trying to do is provide a bridge until we get federal disaster relief, right? Which really helps individuals, for example, on a more significant level. We're trying to help folks navigate a really, really challenging time. So we're looking at things like, hey, helping with their hotels, helping with the groceries, helping with baby diapers. Short-term costs they have right now to get through a really challenging time.
And you mentioned the first week legislation to expand upon that. Is there a sense of the scale of kind of what that would be looking at?
We're having conversations. I don't want to get out ahead of, I've not had a chance to connect with everybody yet, but Senator Peterson's here and I were talking just yesterday. We're working hard, and I think you can expect an announcement relatively soon about that. But again, a lot of conversations, making sure we're doing this in the right way, and making sure we also need to assess exactly what that need is. So we're getting dollars out quickly. You'll see that from other counties as well, from organizations, but also we'll be prepared that first week of the session to move right away if necessary. A couple more questions. Is anyone not asked? Okay, let's go here and then here. Yeah, go for it.
Quickly, with US2 obviously out for months, you mentioned the geotechs. Are you also watching I-90, knowing that there's been a couple slides near the interstate?
That's an understatement. Yeah, yes. I mean, it's of course. Yes, I mean you can imagine it is. I get daily updates from Julie and her team. Of course. I mean, what I would say is they're working extremely hard and on monitoring the situation we're seeing, not just on I-90 but highways, as you heard, I think all across the state.
Is there a concern to I-90 and the integrity?
There is a concern across our state with every highway. I cannot underscore this enough, everybody. Okay, it's not like some isolated deal here, right? That is part of the challenge we have. Many counties, many jurisdictions, many highways, many slides, many flood levels. It's a crisis of significant proportions. So I appreciate the question focused on that, but I just want to be clear. Everybody here is focused on a lot of things all at the same time, which we're doing to the best of our abilities. Yeah, final question. We'll do 2 more. Yeah.
That was actually the question I wanted to ask. Is just I was out there yesterday and I saw how the fork of the Snoqualmie was really hitting the bottom of I-90 and the 2 lanes were closed. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of work was being done. What can be done to stabilize that span? Because obviously the westbound lanes are also compromised right now.
Yeah, everything we can do that's humanly possible, that is safe for workers as well, is being done. That is why over 60 roads have been opened in a handful of days. So a lot of folks are working literally 7 days a week. I've communicated with Julie. If we sign contracts to get assistance on highway, that contract is those folks are working 7 days a week. So it is all hands on deck to manage a crisis all across our state in a way that also makes sure that the folks who are out there working under challenging circumstances are safe as well. Last one.
And to clarify on US2, I mean, are you expecting that entire 49-mile stretch would be closed for months, or is there a chance that you would be opening parts of it?
Julie, can you?
It's pretty early.
Yep.
It's pretty early to call. It's still an active slide throughout there, and we have wind and rain coming this next couple days, so we'll know better in the next 2 days when the event is over.
And and just one second. And so we'll absolutely keep the public. I think we're all trying to inform. WashDOT does an excellent job of putting information out there. We understand how important, for example, Highway 2 is, businesses, for individuals. Obviously, we'll keep folks updated. Julie hears from me more than she probably wants about asking these questions, the same questions I'm asking. But look, we had a meeting, I think it was yesterday, where, I think I was, maybe pushing, hey, can we do things faster? And I saw some photographs. I was like, man, okay, that's a situation. That's a situation. And we have to do this in a way that is safe for the workers out there. It's a very volatile situation, for example, on Highway 2. So, yeah, the final one, yeah.
Follow up for DOC from the microphone, please.
Yeah.
Crystal, Mount Baker, access to and from, do you expect extended closures there, or do you want people to stay out of the area?
Yeah. So SR 410, as I said, is one-way piloted traffic from Enumclaw to Greenwater. It's an active area where the river is still eroding the roadway away, which is why we're piloting cars through. Again, in the next couple days, we'll be able to assess what it's going to take to get that roadway back open. So it's a little early for me to say, but piloted traffic through there 4 times a day, working with the locals, it's challenging to get a lot of people through at the time.
And Highway 542, it's also in the area, right?
542.
State Route 542, possibly
Another slide. Yeah. So again, these slides are still active while we have the rain coming, the saturated roads, and the winds. So we need the slides to actually stop moving and solidify so we can actually address them.
Thanks. We so appreciate all of you being here. And maybe I'll end where I think I started, which was, we know you're all extremely busy, but the coverage, I'm convinced to save lives and really help inform people. We can all do what we do, but having that information going out to folks, we deeply, deeply appreciate. So thanks so much, and appreciate everybody's time, and hope you all have a good day. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
We just heard from Governor Bob Ferguson, as well as other county and state leaders, about the challenging situation our state is dealing with right now in the middle of this devastating flooding. Here is a quick recap. We just learned that there have been more than 1,200 rescues across 10 counties over the last few days. The governor says we are in the long haul. All of the water is putting immense stress on our infrastructure all across the state. We just learned that US 2 will likely be closed for months because of multiple active landslides that are still happening, especially as we have more weather about to slam our region. The state is working to get funding as soon as possible to help out people who are in crisis. They're trying to get the state into an emergency major disaster declaration to free up additional federal funding. Right now, they are just pleading with people to listen to those get out now evacuation orders, which can happen very suddenly, as we saw this morning with the levee failure in Pacific, as well as yesterday with that levee failure in Tequila. We also learned that the county knew the Pacific HESCO levee that failed this morning was a weak spot, one of more than a dozen that crews were working to monitor to shore up when it actually failed. All right, let's reset here at the top of the hour.